And welcome to the Grafton Select Board, August 17, 2021. Call the meeting order at 7 p.m. First order of business, I would like to have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Evening. Thank you very much, everybody. I do have a couple of announcements to make before we get into any public comments. First up, I just wanted to let everyone know that the summer concert series is ongoing on Wednesdays and is held at the Nelson Park in North Grafton at 6 Prentice Street. Please feel free to join from 6:30 to 8 p.m. on Wednesdays for fantastic free entertainment. Anzio's Brick Oven Pizza and Moving Cow will also be on site with concessions available for purchase. Please note that handicap parking is available at the Nelson Library parking lot. General parking is available along Prentice Street and across the street in the large grass area from the field. Upcoming events tomorrow, we have Big Chief. And then the following week on August 25th, we have the Claflin Hill Symphony. Also, please know that fall and winter programming will be announced the week of August 23rd with registration opening on September 1st. And last but not least, I just want to remind everyone that the Silver Beak operational status, there was a memo that was sent out on or about August 10th. Please note that Silver Lake is experiencing the presence of blue-green algae. Although not blue-green algae are harmful, results of the water tests are unable to be turned around before scheduled closing dates, so they're erring on the side of caution in their closing ahead of time. If you have any questions or need any further information, please feel free to reach out to the Grafton Recreation Department at 508-839-5335 extension 1156 or visit the Grafton Rec website at www.graftonrec.com. That's all I have for announcements. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to make a public comment before we start our agenda tonight? Okay, so first up on our agenda, we have a poll hearing for National Grid, please. At this time, can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I move the board vote to open the public hearing for the Stowe Road poll petition for National Grid.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion of opening public hearing? Hearing none. I'm going to go by roll call because of remote participation. I'm going to go DeFazio.
DeFazio, aye.
I'm going to go Often.
Often, aye.
Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, aye. Would I ask the clerk please to read back the legal notice for the public hearing?
The Select Board will hold a public hearing on the request of National Grid to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Stowe Road. Install one JO pole and remove one JO pole on Stowe Road, beginning at a point approximately 775 feet east of the center line of the intersection of Upton Street and continuing approximately 15 feet in the northern direction. Install a 40C2 pole, parentheses P9-50, end parentheses, so we can reroute power away from the bridge on Stowe Road, which is being replaced. We're removing P5 on Stowe Road, which is at the location of the bridge, and to lay and maintain underground materials, cables, and wires in the above and intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. The public hearing will be held on August 17, 2021 in Conference Room A of the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, located at 30 Providence Road. If there's remote meeting participation available, it will be posted on the August 17th agenda. The Selectmen's meeting begins at 7 p.m. The purpose of this hearing is to provide an opportunity for public comment. Anyone wishing to may attend. Grafton Select Board.
Thank you very much. So I'd ask, is Laura Napolitano from National Grid here tonight?
She is with us via Zoom.
Yes, sir, I am.
Hi, good evening, Laura. Welcome.
Hi,
And,
thank you so much.
Is Paul Canoyer available today?
It
do not see Paul on the Zoom call.
Unless you, okay. Laura, do you want to just give some background? I know this is pretty routine, but just give background for the public and we'll open it up for public comment.
Sure. I mean, you pretty much explained everything. There's the bridge on Stowe Road, which is being replaced. So we obviously have to move that pole 5, to get that out of the way so you can do the work on the bridge. And then we'll reroute the primary overhead lines down the road a little bit in front of 1 Stowe Road.
Okay. All right. Is there any questions or comments from the public at this time regarding this poll hearing?
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do you just want to note the memo that Paul sent along to us?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead and read that in and I will call upon you. Thank you.
Sure.
One moment.
So Paul Canoyer says, I'll recommend the approval of the application from National Grid and Verizon for the installation of the pole on Stowe Road and removal of P5 on Stowe Road as well. The overhead wires in the area are in conflict with the planned Stowe Road culvert replacement project. The removal of pole 5 will allow the utilities to reroute overhead wires away from the culvert. The addition of pole 9.5 is needed to support the planned reroute. There are no structures in the proposed location or traffic concerns, and the addition of the pole will have no impact to the area.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone need to see a site map? No? Okay. Who raised their hand up first? Hi, would you want to come up, have a seat here at the table? Just state your name and address, please, for the record.
I live at 38 Stowe Road, which is the very first house after the bridge. Interested in knowing when is this going to happen?
Sir,
What will the duration of power outage be? My partner has a CPAP and needs to have electricity for that. And a lot of these numbers of JO poles and so forth mean Greek to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I have been up and down that area several times trying to assess exactly what is being done. So if it could be illustrated in more layman terms, I think it would be great helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could you
Thank you.
state your name for the record, please, sir?
My name is Kenneth Ware, W-A-R-E, and I live with my partner, Kathleen, Carolyn Kinlock Winkler at 38 Stowe Road.
Thank you very much for that. To answer your question, within our meeting packet on page 12 on there, it demonstrates on a map of where the poles are existing today and where the poles are moving. But I can have Laura from National Grid confirm that.
And is there a map available or something that we could?
William, are you
Yep.
able to pull
Can you
that up?
pull that up, please?
Thank you. We're gonna pull it up on the screen.
Is it okay if I come up there?
You
so I
absolutely
Yeah,
have a
sure,
seat
come
right
on up.
over here, Carolyn, if you'd like. That way you can sit. You could look right across and you'll be able to see all the screens.
Oh, here it is.
Well, you can also sit over here if you'd like. A little bit more comfortable.
When is this intended to commence?
We don't have a definitive date here. This is just a hearing on just moving of the pole because it's in the public right away at this point. Laura, do you have an update that you can give the community on when the work will commence?
No, sir, I do not have the date. Obviously, it's contingent upon the approval from the town. Once we get the approval from the town, let me see if I can tell you anything. 1 second. Looks like what we need to do is some minor tree trimming. Get the dig safe out there to market, and waiting on the approval of the petition hearing. So I would say, let me just look at one more thing. Sorry for the wait.
So Kenneth, you're looking for a specific date, obviously.
I'm sorry?
You're looking for a specific date.
Well, I've had at least 3 different versions of when the work is supposedly going to happen.
Yep.
At one point, we were told that the work on the bridge itself was going to commence end of October, 1st of September. reading in some of the newspapers, it says that the contract hasn't even been awarded on this yet. Whether that's happened since that newspaper article or not, I don't know.
Got it.
And I've also talked with Brian, the town engineer, and to be honest, most of the information I got from him was somewhat vague. Because he didn't have anything to hang his hat on, didn't have
Sure.
a contract, didn't have a start date. So that's what we're looking for.
Got it.
Laura, do you have an update?
So while I don't have an actual date, Mr. Ware, I understand your concern 100%. I use a CPAP as well, so I would be nervous about that too. What I can tell you is that this work isn't going to be done overnight, and I would venture to say, based on the little amount of work we have to do, maybe a couple hours, maybe half a day, maybe. So the impact to you, if any, is going to be minimal. And like I said, it won't be overnight.
Are they intending to put in underground wiring or?
No, everything
No,
is
sir.
aerial.
Something to that effect here.
This is a poll hearing, so they're actually going to move a pole in its existing location that's causing that prevents the work from occurring.
That's right in the middle of where they're gonna be working.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're moving the pole and the wires out of the right of way so that way they can get equipment and move things in there safely. But more importantly, all of the wires will still be aerial, not
Okay.
subterranean.
Over the bridge as well?
I believe so.
I thought it said underground on the.
I don't have show an underground here, Laura. Is that the plan?
Let me just go back to my.
It says
I mean,
here
it
to lay
shows
and maintain underground laterals, so I.
No,
assume
there's
that
no.
Laterals
It always says that in the forms, the official forms for the town, Mr. Ware. But no, sir, there will be no underground utilities there.
Okay.
Laura, if we get you Kenneth's contact information, can you let him know when this is scheduled, when you schedule it?
Sure, 100%.
Okay. So let's get your contact information and they can reach out when that's scheduled.
Now, as a timeline, I assume that the wiring is the first issue in order for the work of the bridge itself to commence. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is just for the pole work.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, the bridge work is completely separate.
Is there any further movement on when that might happen with the bridge itself?
I could probably get you an update tomorrow when Evan has an opportunity to speak with Paul Canoyer, DPW Director.
Okay.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, and it's only curiosity, there is a rather substantial beaver dam that is currently holding back the vast majority of that water. Is there any indication as to how that's gonna be resolved? It looks like it's gonna be right in the middle of where they need to put that new conduit.
I'm no conservation expert, but I can assure you that beaver has more rights than most people. So I
Unfortunately.
think that's going to have to be handled whatever way that the state mandates that you handle those types of situations.
I thought that the beavers had been removed from the
Endangered.
endangered species.
I'm going to say on the side caution, I'm not a conservation expert. I couldn't answer
Oh.
that one way or the other for you.
Well, I do know that the town of Grafton, probably 4 or 5 years ago, the highway department went down and tried to alleviate that dam, and they had a clamshell tractor. They pulled the dam all apart. They left all of the debris right aside of it, and by the time they got into 140, the beavers were pulling it back into the hole.
Yeah.
They're industrious fellows, aren't they?
Unfortunately, much so.
Yes.
Yep.
I think your notes are well taken. I'm sure we can have some feedback sent to you within the next day or so. I think with National Grid giving you a date and a timeline, we can work with Laura in her office to make sure that you're notified ahead of time of when this disruption would occur. You can make all the appropriate plans necessary for just a brief power outage while they move the pole in the lines.
Well, it is without question that the road is gonna have to be closed down for some period of time too, so there are people on our street up above us that will have to know when that's gonna occur
Oh,
as
sure.
well.
Any type of road closure would be well publicized by
Yeah.
the town.
Yeah, they're going to communicate. And I know, Carolyn, you've been waiting for this for a long time.
No, not this.
Oh, the other, that's
No,
right.
they
you got the other-
fixed the- they
fixed
fixed
other
the big
issue. Oh,
terrible
sorry,
problem
I
that
thought
we
they were
had.
connected, I'm sorry.
The Conservation Commission might have plans for this that we can see.
For the bridge?
Yeah.
Nope, the DPW would probably have that through either its engineering firm of what the design concept will look like. But just outside of that, this is more for the poll hearing component of it.
Right. Sorry about
And, you know, I just want to wrap up if there isn't anything else that you need from just notification and just understanding the map, I'll overlay, get you copies of that. All the wires are going to be aerial. We'll reach out to you upon, obviously, road closure and when they're going to do the work.
Well, it would
Perfect, thank
be greatly appreciated, any input that we could get,
Of
course.
so we know
Sure.
what's going on.
Yep,
Thank you
no,
very much for
absolutely.
coming
thank
in
you.
tonight.
Thanks for
That's
coming
it.
in.
We really appreciate the feedback and we'll
Thanks
make
so
sure
much.
it's communicated. Is there any other members from the public that wish to comment on the poll hearing? Okay, seeing none, I can entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move the board vote to close the public hearing for Stowe Road poll petition.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on closing of the public hearing? Hearing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Opt and I.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. Now we're just looking into the petition to move the poll. At this point, if there isn't any further discussion or questions from the board, I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to approve the poll petition as presented for Stowe Road.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion of moving the poll in the petition? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Often?
Opt and I.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to take one thing out of order tonight. I want to ask the board for its indulgence, please. I would like to move discussion item new host community agreement HCA with Jushi Mass Incorporated at 8 Millennium Drive and the other business that we have to protect that pertains to that and move that to now. Is there any objections from the board?
Nope.
Nope.
Thank you. So the first thing I'm asking the board to do as part of our discussions that we've had over the past couple of meetings is there's an HCA that requires some action that we take on it tonight, and this is for Marchetti's Industries. If you guys would like to come on up and take some seats, that would be fine too. At this point, Evan, we just need a motion to basically cancel that agreement tonight.
For Marchetti,
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you. Yep.
Okay, sorry, I've been having some technical difficulties. Yes, all we need is a motion to approve the termination agreement with Marchetti. We did receive, just prior to this meeting, the actual signed agreement from Marchetti. So we're in good shape there.
Great.
Okay, is there any questions from the board regarding the Marchetti business? Colleen, do you have anything? No? Okay. At this time, I can entertain a motion from the board.
So I move the board accept to terminate the HCA agreement with Marchetti.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Opt and I.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. So next up here, we're discussing a new community host agreement with Jushi. We have with us tonight members from Nature's Remedy. We have their counsel, Mr. Smith is here tonight. Mr. Carr from Nature's Remedy. Do we have anybody else here from Jushi?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. There are representatives of Jushi who are on Zoom with us this evening.
Okay.
I believe Matt Lee is one, as well as Harris Shane.
So Harris and Matt are both here with us tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe John Barak, is he here? John Barak?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And John Barak, yeah.
Okay. So the only one's not here is Justin, correct?
Justin is not present.
Not a problem. I just want to make sure I know who's here if they have to say anything. All right.
Yeah.
So we're back here tonight. I want to thank you for coming back. I appreciate you letting me take this out of order tonight and not waiting towards the end of our
We
meeting.
appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. We appreciate you working with the town administrator, but I'm going to ask Evan real quick to just kind of give us a quick update to the board about what's been discussed thus far and what actions we have, if possible, in front of us tonight. Evan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Smith and I have been working on this off and on for the last week. And I think we've reached a pretty good point in which both the town and Jushi would be happy. So just to give you a quick overview of what we've discussed, one, we needed to make sure that we terminated the agreement with Marchetti, which you just did, which is fantastic timing. And then the board had a number of things that it wanted to include in the HCA. Now, there was a little bit of back and forth on whether or not we would execute a new HCA or whether we would transfer the other one or assign the other one. Our council is pretty adamant that it needs to be a new HCA. And so that's just a difference of opinion, but I think that it being our council, that is the direction we would go, with the understanding that no other terms change beyond what we're talking about here tonight. So the board wanted a few things. They wanted to make sure that the new owner, Jushi, was keeping in contact with the board and giving updates on what's happening at the project. So we have tentatively agreed to a clause that compels Jushi to come in annually, remotely, obviously, if no one's around, and to give us an update on where that project status lies. We also talked about a 24-month or 2-year expiration date, and so that would obviously be if Jushi fails to start any work on the project. And also we wanted to add language which outlines that the town of Grafton has a 3 RME limit, and include the language that is specified in the race to the finish line policy. Now, in talking with Mr. Smith, this is a grow manufacturing operation, so it does not fall under the same categories. However, the board's policy is that any HCA executed in the town of Grafton will have that language in it, even if it doesn't apply. And so the board obviously has before it pretty close to what it was looking for in its entirety. The only thing we don't have that was discussed at the last meeting is language that gives a specific timeline on the build out. And the reason that's not in there is for most of our discussion, it became problematic to add that language because there's too many things outside of the scope of control that can happen in today's environment that would make that very difficult to do or to give an actual definitive timeline pre-merger. And so we felt that, the town in theory has 3 bites at the apple. So one, Jushi would need to come back before the planning board annually. 2, obviously that 1-year check-in we just talked about, and 2 is the expiration of the agreement in 24 months. So we felt that adequately covered what the board was trying to do with the construction timeline. But we're, we are open to any feedback or question that the board would have. Mr. Smith, did I cover everything adequately?
You're doing the job. I think you've summarized everything exactly the way you and I discussed, and I just want to point out that I'm very appreciative of the town administrator working with us. Everything as he's expressed it, my client and I think I can speak on behalf of Jushi, who are on the line if they want to chime in otherwise, but we are amenable to all of the items that your town administrator has just laid out.
Thank you. Does any of the board members want to have any questions?
I have one
Sure.
clarification question for Evan. And this is just the annual meeting. Is the annual meeting with the planning board? I know that's required. Is that on there, or is it also the select board? I just want clarification.
The select board is separate.
Okay.
The planning board is required already, and so that wouldn't be spelled out in the HDA. But the meeting with the select board, which is really just coming in, like I said, either in person or virtually, and having a conversation about project status.
Great.
Should that be necessary? I mean, I think if things are well underway and we're in that loop, then the board could obviously decide to waive that.
Sure. Thank you for that clarification, because I know Mr. Smith had brought it up last time with the requirements of the planning board. Was it necessary to also have requirements from the select board? And I think a conversation is sufficient. So great. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Just one.
Oh, Matt?
So Evan, what does the language for the 2-year termination look like? What's that based on?
So we haven't written that yet.
Okay.
And I'm sure that the plan, or well, at least in my mind, the plan is that Ginny and Mr. Smith will work out the details of what that needs to look like in their legalese. But it's essentially, it needs to be some language that allows both sides to extend the agreement should that be mutually agreed upon at that time. And then obviously if they're building out a building, then it becomes moot, right? And so it needs to capture both of those things. But confident that Mr. Smith and Ginny would be able to reach agreement on that.
Okay.
Any other questions on the board? Colleen?
So similar to what we just did with Marchetti, we should also terminate Nature's Remedies HCA as we're entering into a whole new one with Jushi, correct?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, according to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
No.
Mr. Smith, or Mr. Chair. Sorry.
So just as a matter of course, in terms of how we've done this in other communities, as Evan points out, the merger is pending. We're not. Jushi's not going to close on the merger. Neither will Nature's Remedy, unless and until, number one, the CCC, all of the state level licenses have been approved, and I do want to report to this board, since we've last met, the CCC actually, in fact, has approved the ownership and control change. So that's a big milestone for both of these parties, and that was not the case when we last met with the board. So that's number one. The state level needs to approve the transaction and the change of ownership, which they've done. But however, as you know, as I explained last time, we've been meeting with other towns where Nature's Remedy has establishments, combinations of retail establishments as well as their cultivation manufacturing site in Lakeville. With respect to all of those HCAs, as well as all of the zoning related permits and approvals and any other local permits and approvals that were personal to Nature's Remedy, that is, that they could not be unilaterally assigned to another entity, even by virtue of a merger. We've had to go back to all of those communities, just like Grafton, to seek local approval. So there's a state level approval and then there's local approval. We've gotten the state level, and now we've been slowly, successfully going before all of these different local boards, obtaining various approvals. We've got Grafton left, and then we've got one more approval in Lakeville. So we're very close to this. And frankly, we're at the point where we got past the big milestone with respect to the state level. Now we're just, the only thing that's really holding up pretty much the closing of the merger is getting these final local approvals. So that's a sort of a long-winded answer to, with respect to, I think, Member Roy's comment with respect to terminating Nature's Remedy. So in a way, yes, you are terminating Nature's Remedy's right, title, and interest with respect to the HCA, but that will come by virtue of the actual HCA, in whatever form town council and the town and both parties agree, whether it's a new HCA or whether it's an assignment. I think it's more form over substance. I think it doesn't really matter to us, but it's got to be contingent upon the merger happening. We're not going to be terminating Nature's Remedy's rights with respect to any local approvals unless and until the merger happens. Now, there are a number of other hurdles that need to be done between the parties with respect to papering the transaction and whatever consents need to happen with respect to that. But that is clearly a condition that needs to happen first. So in terms of this board voting tonight with respect to terminating Nature's Remedies HCA's, I don't think that that's probably the correct motion. I think the motion probably is something in the nature of that the board approves based on the points and conditions that the town administrator has laid out, to approve entering into new HCA's with Nature's Remedy and Jushi, which will contain a condition that will provide this pending merger. And upon completion of the merger and notification by the parties to the town, indicating Town of Grafton, yes, we've completed the merger, and now the effectiveness of that new HCA comes into effect. That's really what I think the board is voting on. Now, that's getting a little bit granular with respect to the language in terms of the instrument itself, but I did send to Evan a sample of what was done in Tingsboro. Now, in Tingsboro, the way we've been doing these, it's been by virtue of assignment/transfer of the existing HCA's. If town council wants to have a new HCA, again, we can do that, provided, as I think Evan had underscored, as long as the other business terms are not changing, with the exception of what's being discussed tonight. But that's essentially, I think, what needs to happen. And what we're hoping for, if the board is amenable to it, is that the board vote to approve this, what I had just described, and give Evan, the town administrator, the authority to essentially work with town council to put this to paper, and then the board members would sign, or the board members designee would sign, however the town would do that.
Got it.
Any other questions from the board? Colleen?
So that was a very thorough response. However, I brought up the point because I want to make this go as quickly and as smoothly as possible for you. So if your new HCA has language in it that it goes into effect, I just wanted to get over every hurdle that we possibly could, including terminating HCA with Nature's Remedy, so we didn't find ourselves in the same situation when we have two HCA's with one address. That was my point.
So I guess what I'm hearing, just summative, is that upon new agreement with the town that we take action tonight, there has to be a termination component upon completion of the merger and notification of said completion to the town, and a mechanism within that agreement that would automatically execute and null and void that previous HCA with Nature's Remedy.
Exactly, all within one instrument.
Got it.
And
I understand it.
Certainly can work through town council on that.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? I know that people from Jushi are here tonight. Did Matt or John, did you have anything that you would like to add or say?
I don't personally. You heard me talk probably too much last time around, but I'll defer to John if he'd like to say hi and say his piece.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate the town and the board listening to us, and I just want to thank you for your consideration of this approval, and whether or not it's assignment or new HCA or what have you. We really appreciate it, and we can't wait to for this deal to close and to build this business. So thanks very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions from the board? Evan, do you have anything final that you need to say?
No, I think we're in good shape. I think that we will wrap this all up with council. So if the board does want to move forward, I did provide some sample language, which I could either read or you can otherwise use that or do something on your own too, obviously. But
We're going to give Matt 1 second.
Yep. Ready?
I am ready. I'll entertain a motion.
All right. I move the board vote to allow the town administrator to enter a new HCA or transferred amended HCA with Nature's Remedy and Jushi contingent upon the approval of town council, provided the following terms are included in the negotiated HCA. The requirement for Jushi to have a representative attend a select board meeting annually to inform the board of the current project status, a 24-month expiration date, and the HCA shall include language which outlines the 3 RME limit within Grafton and includes the language as specified in the race to the finish line policy.
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion by the committee? So board, sorry. Colleen, did you have anything? Yep.
So the word transfer is something we do want to use in this motion?
So I don't think that's been, well, for me, what I heard was it hasn't been decided yet. How that's gonna go.
If you
I thought
if you
council
leave
said
it in there,
I'm sorry, what?
yeah, our council prefers it. If you want to leave it in there as part of that motion, it's not going to affect the outcome.
Yep, there's an or in the motion.
Mr. Chair, the only small item I would comment on is that the word HCA be pluralized because there are in fact two, which Evan had provided. I just want to make sure both are contemplated.
And someone should mention that HCA, for the record, is Host Community Agreement.
Yes.
For an acronym.
So I'll amend my motion to be host community agreements, plural.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we fixed the motion, the component. Any further discussion from the board? So the only thing I would add, just when you're working this out between the two entities, is maybe make the dates on the annual meeting with the select board somewhat aligned with the planning board's special permit until they get to, beyond the special permit and they get their full license in operation. That's the only thing. I think the timing in that would be more efficient for the new parties involved.
Agreed.
Can I add to that, Mr. Chair? To that comment, I would actually like the select board to meet with a Jushi representative before the planning board in case we need to have discussions with the planning board. I think that would be helpful so we're not having multiple meetings.
So yeah, we can write it that it happened, say, 4 weeks prior to planning board meeting, which happens mid-September.
Yep.
Based on the way the special permit is written today. Okay. Does anyone have any
Good.
objections to that from the board? No. Okay. If there isn't any further discussion, I'll take a roll call vote. Ms. DeFazio,
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often,
Often I.
Ms. Roy,
Roy, aye.
and Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming out tonight. Thank you for again attending, and thanks for helping us get this all fixed. And good luck with your merger and
Yes.
your endeavors.
Well, it's been great
Thank you.
working with you, and I kudos to Member Roy for actually pointing out the Marquetti matter. It's a matter of cleanup, and we appreciate that gets cleared as well.
There's not much that gets past Colleen.
Caught me off guard
Before
if
you
you didn't
guys go,
notice
though,
last time.
Hang on a sec. Another thing that was asked was
Yes.
to allow the agreement to be signed by a representative. So does the board want to take that action up? Because we haven't done that yet. I just don't want to be in a situation where it's all negotiated and then we're all waiting on it.
Well, you authorized the chair, the town administrator to do that in your
Yes.
motion.
Okay.
I think that's sufficient. We've
Yep.
we've empowered the TA to act on our behalf for this
Yep.
agreement.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, we're good.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you
Yes,
very
thank
much,
you.
everyone. Have a great night.
Yeah, we
Yep.
look forward to working with you all.
Enjoy your summers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next up here, the next couple of items that we have up here is there's a Tufts one-day beer and wine license, Community Harvest one-day entertainment license, and a Willard House Clock one-day beer and wine license. The two one-day beer and wine license, I want to ask the board if they just want to take a moment and perhaps do a consent motion for approving those two licenses in one, or does it want to take them up one at a time?
I'm fine taking them all at once.
Yeah, me too.
Colleen?
Yeah, let's do it at once. I got one ready if you want me to read it.
Oh,
Go for it.
of course you do. Let's do it.
I move the board vote to approve a one-day beer and wine license for Tufts Veterinary School on August 27th and August 28th, 2021 for events to be held on their campus located at 200 Westboro Road and the Willard House and Clock Museum on August 21st, 2021.
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Ms. DeFazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often I.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. Can we go back to Community Harvest one-day entertainment license, please? Any questions or comments from the board on this?
I think we have a representative here, but
We do? I'm sorry. Do we have someone
Yes,
here from the Community Harvest?
Mary Hope Gardner from Community Harvest Project, if anyone has any
Oh.
questions.
Mary Hope, thank you very much for joining us. Sorry about that. I have you here on my list.
No problem.
You want to just give a brief background on what you're looking to do and give a shout out?
We are planning to host our annual Carolyn's Garden Summer Flower Festival on Saturday, the 21st. It will be from 10 to 3 with music, hopefully 12 to 2. It's going to be a fundraiser to fund our operations, which is the nonprofit volunteer-based farming. So we'll have a bunch of different flower-based activities and then picnics and live music.
All right. Any questions from Mary Hope? No? All right. I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to approve the entertainment license for the Community Harvest Project on August 21st, 2021.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion for the one-day entertainment license? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. Mary Hope, thank you very much for coming in. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Have a
much.
great night, everybody. Yep. All right. So next up on our agenda, financial software chart of accounts conversation discussion with finance department. Tonight we have Mary, our chief financial officer, and Evan here tonight to go over just some changes with the board and the public. And I understand, Mary, you have a few exhibits that you'd like to share with the committee and the community on the meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Can we get that prepared? And go ahead and start when you're ready.
Thank you. I came on board here in Grafton in early February, and I quickly realized that there was, an issue with the software. One issue was employees in the treasurer and collector department. They're asking me for revenue numbers, and I was confused by that. So for municipalities in Massachusetts, most of them follow the UMIS manual, the Uniform Massachusetts Accounting System. And it's a manual for operations of an accounting system for the local governments. So what that does is it standardizes all of the accounts into an account structure for reporting requirements for the Department of Revenue. And for all of your accounts. So for example, your motor vehicle excise revenue account number should be 4150. And so that's not true for Grafton. Every year we generate a new revenue number for motor vehicle excise taxes. So there was a lot of issues, and the trial balance is unreadable. So I went out and I met with 3 different financial software vendors, Vadar, Munis, and Springbrook. And the finance team, along with the IT tech committee, Dave Robbins, the chair, we all participated in live demos presented by Vadar, Munis, and Springbrook. And I do have a cost analysis for the 3 vendors. It's for Vadar. What they did was they worked in the implementation costs into our yearly cost. We'd also need consultant help with the restructure of the chart of accounts. I will need SoftWrite. I'll need 2 systems for when we do this, because fiscal year ends on June 30th, and it takes about 3 months to reconcile and finalize and close the books. So I'm already in contact with our account manager to get an estimate for 6 months of SoftWrite. So I just gave an estimate. We'll also need the animal marriage license implementation software. So that's where the town clerk, where they track all of that information. So they'll, Vadar does not offer that in their software package. So Candy went out and she got a quote from another vendor that will satisfy her requirements. And then she'll also have to pay a yearly license for that. And then we have Munis. And Munis, their upfront costs are over $300,000, and their yearly cost is very expensive as well. We would have to hire a full-time consultant with the chart of accounts. Vadar, they provide the consultant, but I'll need help with our consultant for some accounts, like the debt and stuff like that, because I'm new and still learning all of Grafton's accounts and the intricate details. And so the same holds true for the SoftWrite 6 months and the animal marriage license and those costs. And I did meet with Springbrook, and their implementation is $89,500. Their yearly cost is the $47,801. And like Munis, we'd have to hire a full-time consultant to help with the whole chart of account restructure. And so those are our three choices. And so why the need? You know, and I mentioned a couple examples, and you know, in talking with SoftWrite, who we currently have, they advised me that they're no longer supporting the software. So there's no updates, and it will be obsolete within 5 years. And their software, it does not comply with the Uniform Massachusetts accounting system in which we need it to. And, you know, so what will the new financial software provide the town of Grafton? It will standardize the chart of accounts that will comply with the UMIS manual. And it will also provide transparency with the accounting reporting for the Department of Revenue, for my Schedule A combined balance sheet, and my tax rate recap. And it will also improve the accountability for the finance departments. You know, lack of accountability is really intentional. More often, it's the result of an underlying issue, with the underlying issue being the antiquated software system that we're using. So I thank you so much for your time. Do any of you have any questions?
Any of the board have any questions on the analysis that Mary just gave?
Yeah, sure.
Matt?
Mary, maybe you could articulate a little bit. The costs are, it looks like we've got sort of a bronze, silver, gold
Yeah.
type of pricing structure here. I had a couple of questions. I looked briefly at, you know, the websites and the product descriptions and all that kind of stuff. My impression is that the most sort of forward-thinking, progressive company was Springbrook. It looked to me like their product was largely built to be delivered as a cloud service. They're using things like Tableau for their reporting, which is a very modern, sophisticated reporting tool. I guess one of the questions that I would have is, you know, what difference would we see with a Springbrook versus a Vader? You know, do all three of these tick all your tick boxes, or, you know, are we? I guess I just need some help. You know, deciding between the different price points. You know, what
Right.
do we get for? You know, 70,
Well, there's
75,000
pros and-
versus 186.
There's pros and cons to all of it. So Vadar, it would take 12 months to implement. Munis, it would take me 18 to 24 months, and Springbrook would be 12 to 18 months. Springbrook we would be the first in Massachusetts to have Springbrook. Currently, there are no municipalities that have Springbrook. So, right, they have KDS and SoftWrite, and so those are not being supported. And so they're trying to, you know, capture those, you know, Springbrook. Springbrook is trying to capture the SoftWrite people. I met with the account manager for Springbrook. And their software, they have new software, and it wasn't fully implemented. And the new software, from my understanding, will not be ready until this fall. So I don't know too much about their product because, you know, like I said, we would be the first in Massachusetts.
Okay. Is it fair to characterize them as kind of an up-and-comer in this space?
You know, I think that it's unfortunate, but they're just associated with SoftWrite, and I think a lot of municipalities, they had SoftWrite 5 years ago. They sold it to Springbrook, and they stopped supporting it. So people just started bailing out of SoftWrite.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Got it. But so what you're saying is that Vader would do, it would tick all your tick boxes.
Vadar, yes.
Okay.
Vadar did me a favor, and what they did was they worked the implementation cost of $74,800 into, and they spread that out over a 6-year contract for us. So we would just be paying the $43,355. So that would cover our yearly costs plus the implementation.
Okay. So maybe a simpler question is, why would we go with Munis or Springbrook?
Why would we go with those two? Oh, Evan wants to take that.
Evan?
Can I jump in?
Certainly.
So Munis is the Cadillac, right? Munis is the cat's meow. That's what we would want in a perfect world. It does everything. It's shiny. The interface is beautiful. But the total project cost is $500,000. And in Mary and my conversations, that just doesn't seem feasible for where we are currently with our budget, and we have other things that we'd like to do with that money than spend it on financial software. So I mean that's really that's the heart of the matter. It is important also to point out that Mary and I both have a 7-year relationship with Vadar. The owner Frank, we know him quite well, and we can always reach out and get somebody on the phone, and that's what really drew us back to inviting them to the table when you have a shiny system like Munis that is used in a lot of municipalities in Massachusetts. Probably Vadar is only second to Munis, but we have that relationship and we feel comfortable with their customer service and the things that they've done with us over the years. So even though we look at Munis and say, wow, wouldn't that be a beautiful system, we just can't justify that cost. Not when Vadar is willing to amortize the migration costs over 6 years, which is pretty much unheard of anywhere else. It really comes down to that driving factor of Vadar is affordable and it does what we need it to do. And, Springbrook, we don't really want to be the guinea pig in Massachusetts. So that's, in my opinion, that's how we got to where we are.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions from the board? Comments? So just my question here is that you built in the implementation costs into the yearly for 6 years. Is it fair to say that in year 7 that yearly cost would drop if the town were to continue with Vadar?
I would assume so, yes. Yeah.
It provided other costs don't outpace that over a 7-year period, because we can't really predict what their fee structure looks like 7 years from now. But I think it's safe to assume that definitely falls off. So there's savings.
Because if you break out that implementation cost, that's like in the yearly, it's significantly cheaper than Springbrook at the end of the day. Right, so I kind of look at that as like your decision on going with Vadar. What I'm hearing is the comfort levels there. It does it, to Matt's point, it checks off all the boxes for you, and it looks like the implementation should go smoother because of the familiarity with the system. Is that a pretty accurate statement?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Great.
Great. Does anyone else have any other questions for Mary or Evan?
All mine were answered.
No, thanks for the update.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for all
Thank
the
you.
work, Mary. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mary did a great job on this, and I want to thank her for all her efforts, as well as the IT committee. They did a really thorough job of reviewing it, and we're excited to get this off the ground.
All right.
Outstanding.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My team will be so happy.
Thanks, Mary.
All right. Next up, we have fire truck financing. Evan, do you want to kick this off?
Sure, and I see Chief Gothier is on the call as well with us.
Chief, good evening.
So
How are you?
the chief and sorry.
Oh, just want to make sure the chief can hear us. Yep, we're all good.
Yes, okay.
Okay, good.
So I know that the chief and his committee has done their due diligence and really worked on putting together a great truck package here. And so then the chief shipped it over to me to look at financing. And so my recommendation at this point would be for the board to approve the first motion on your list, which is to enter into the contract with the provider, and then we would secure our own financing and not go with the lease option. And I'll explain briefly why that is, because I think that that's somewhat different than how Grafton's been doing it in the past. So if you look at the lease options that were provided in the packet, you'll see that the effective rate is about 2.5%. But right now, if the town were to issue what's called a BAN, which is a bond anticipatory note, in advance of bonding, our effective rate would be 0.5% at its current rate. And so there's some considerable savings there as far as interest costs. The town also then gains the flexibility to do one of two things: either continually ban that over the next 5 years, basically just roll the bans over, because if the ban interest rate stays as low as it is, you won't find that effective rate anywhere else. And so short-term money becomes really good. However, if it is looking like we're going to be outpaced, we can always shift that over and go out to bond. And then, bond rates are pretty good right now. Generally, that's more attractive when you have a larger amount. So if the town is 2 years from now going to ban some larger sum, we could roll it into that as well. But effectively, right now, the money for short-term financing is so good that our bond counsel recommended that we go that way.
Okay, great.
So essentially what we're doing is we're entering into a contract for them to build the truck, and we are providing them with financing when they require it per the contract, and we do that by issuing a ban.
So before we get into that, I mean, would it be prudent if we hear from the chief? Just, Chief, can you give us an overview of this truck, and the community will understand what this investment means for the department?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. We've been dealing with, working with Seagrave apparatus. They've been in business since 1881. We purchased our last fire apparatus from them back in 2019. And we've had remarkable luck with it. Everybody likes it. So we decided we wanted to kind of mirror that truck and make a few different changes on it. And with myself and the 3 officers and one other firefighter from Station 1 worked with the sales rep. We worked for probably the last 6 to 7 months working out on this truck. And we decided to go with a top mount pump. And the reason for that is we're on the Mass Pike quite often. And we're looking at the safety of the pump operator, where he's on top of the truck. He's got 360 vision around the truck, and he's not on the asphalt at the pump panel. It has a lot of the same options as our engine 3. I mean, we brought our engine 3 up. We went over that, fine tooth and comb with the committee, what we liked, what we wanted to change, and we proceeded with that. And we thought we came up with the best apparatus that would serve us for at least the next 25 years. Unfortunately now, I mean, prices of everything have gone up and they keep going up. And I know in the business I'm at, we're getting costs increased all the time, sometimes 7%, 10%, 12%. And we're having trouble getting product. With that being said, the sooner we do this, the sooner we'll get the apparatus. Unfortunately, we're looking at a 420-day build-out, which is 14 months. Prior to that, it used to be in the vicinity of 180 to 240 days. So the sooner we can do this, the sooner we can get this ball rolling and getting the truck going. And talking to my sales rep today, and if we do sign the agreement, if it was possible to even get someone to send me a picture of the signed contract so we can send that to Seagrave before they get the actual thing. They want to get working on this so that we can get this process going as soon as possible. So I want to thank the committee, Paul Canoia, Mike Corda, Eric Matthew, and Matt Maynard. We worked very hard on this. They came up with a lot of great ideas. We went back and forth with the sales rep. Sales reps are nothing but cordial to us. I mean, he's a great sales rep. He's a customer sales rep, not someone for the company. He works with the customer. And I saw that firsthand with the last truck we did. And we're very happy with that and proceed with this one.
Right. Thanks, Chief. Thanks for that overview. Appreciate you explaining that and the need for the apparatus. Does any of the committee members have any questions? Okay. Evan, what is it you would like us to do first here?
So all that you need to do at the current time is authorize the chair to sign the contract with Seagrave. Since we'll be providing our own financing, we don't need to do the lease paperwork.
Take a motion.
Okay. If there's any questions on that, I can take a motion.
I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign the contract with Seagrave Fire Apparatus LLC for 1 unit of Seagrave model TB50CA Marauder top mount pumper.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All right. Seeing none, all by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. Okay?
Quick question for you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
When would I be able to get a copy of that contract?
It's right here.
Okay. I mean,
Chief beat me to it. Chief, maybe we can request that Will scans that in and emails that over to you.
Yes.
You can get that in the morning tomorrow, and then we can have that original mailed if they want to, but that should be sufficient to get them moving.
Yeah, if you have to scan it and email it to me, then I can, I'll send it to Charlie, my sales rep. And I'll talk to him because I know the last time I picked it up, the contract, and hand delivered it to Charlie, and he mailed it out. So I'll confirm that before you do anything else.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. And thank you to the committee as well.
Yep, Thank
Yep,
you.
thanks for all the work.
Excuse me. Okay, anything else then on that? We're all set with that, Evan? We go, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Next, we have EL Harvey Solid Waste and Recycling Contract. Evan, you wanna?
Yes, that's me again, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So, as most of you know, we have been working on this contract. It was mostly completed when I was hired in February. There's been some back and forth on it. And so this is really just the culmination of all of that work, us putting everything together. I've been working with BJ Harvey, who's really great to work with. I've had a really enjoyable time, and I've worked with Mike Sespan over at EL Harvey as well. So this is essentially unchanged from what the committee was able to reach when Carter was here. And that is, the fiscal year ending 22, $633,216. 23 is 649,047, and 24 is 665,273. Essentially, the major change in this contract is that we pay for recycling tonnage, which you have seen in the recent years, but is now codified in contract. So, I don't know how deep you want me to go into this, but essentially what happened is China stopped taking our recycling. We don't have a market for it, and so then instead of us being paid or getting the service for free, we now have to pay for that tonnage to go away. And so we were able to negotiate that into the contract. But otherwise, it's pretty standard to what service you already provide, and there is no change in what the consumer would see.
Okay. Any questions from the board regarding the EL Harvey Solid Waste and Recycling Contract? Dory?
Just quickly, yeah. So just a question about OSHA, which I had mentioned to you, Evan. I think in our last contract there was something in there just to provide safety on the roadways, and I'm sure Harvey is OSHA certified, all their employees, but that's something I'd like to see in the contract, or at least verify. At the very least, verify with BJ that that's happening, that there aren't people on the side of the trucks or anything, especially on main roadways, just to protect our residents and their employees. And then my second question is, do you know off the top of your head how much our Wheelabrator contract is? I just would like to know the total amount of what we are now spending on solid waste and recycling in town.
I do not have that data in front of me, but I'm happy to put that together and send it out to you, and it's something that we can display to the public.
Great.
At the next meeting.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't pull that up.
Yeah, and I just thought of it, so I didn't ask. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions, comments from the board? All right. I don't have any. If there isn't any more, we can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign the residential solid waste and recycling contract dated June 30, 2021 with EL Harvey & Sons as presented.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. Thank you. All right, next up on our agenda, we have a resignation for Cultural Council. If there isn't any questions, I can entertain a motion.
Let's see. I move the board vote to accept the resignation of Cindy Ide from the Cultural Council to send her letter of thanks.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I just want to personally thank Cindy for her time on the Cultural Council as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Cindy.
Thanks so much, Cindy.
And any further discussion? All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. All right, so next up we have several appointments for the Select Board. First up, we have Historic District Commission?
Historical Commission, you mean?
Historical Commission, not Historic District, sorry.
I move the board vote to appoint Bridget McClemens to the Historical Commission for the term set to expire on June 30, 2024.
Second.
Motion made in second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is Bridget here tonight? You
here,
want to
everyone.
introduce yourself?
Yep, she's here with us, Beaver.
I am here. How are you?
Hi,
Bridget.
Bridget. How are you?
Hey, Bridget.
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Nice
Good.
to see you.
Thanks. You too.
All right. So just give just the update, like why you want to serve on the Historic District Commission and what you're wanting to do.
Sure. I was my main purpose was what can I do in Grafton, and history excites me. I love old historical homes. I love old historical buildings. So anything that I can do to help to preserve and enhance would be fun for me.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate you making the meeting. Does any of the board members have any questions for Bridget?
No, just thanks for your interest.
Yeah. Thanks for volunteering.
Thank you.
All right. Great. All right. At this point, I can entertain any further discussion. We already have a motion. Hearing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. Thank you. Thanks very much, Bridget, for coming out. Good luck. All right, next up, we have emergency management appointment for Kaya Pitts. Kaya couldn't make tonight as she's unavailable, but if there's any discussion or questions from the board, if there isn't, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to appoint Kaya Pitts to the Emergency Management Committee for an indefinite term.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. All right, so next up, we have select board members to serve on the ARPA, the Arpa committee. Tonight, I believe we have, Mary, we want to come up?
So I would be the member at large, right?
Yes, I'm sorry, this is select board member. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. This is like one of the longest agendas I've had to, and I said earlier today I was going to mess this up, and sure enough, I did it right at this point. So I apologize. Select board member to serve on ARPA committee. Is there any member of the select board that wishes to serve on this group? I'll volunteer.
Don't everybody jump in at once.
I said I would volunteer.
All right.
Okay.
Will you take a motion then?
I will entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to appoint Peter Carlson as the select board representative to the American Rescue Plan Act Committee.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the appointment of Peter? Hearing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. Now we're up. Emery, sorry about this. Welcome. So we have next up appointment member at large, the ARPA committee. Do you want to come on up and just introduce yourself? Tell us why you want to serve on the committee, and if the board has any questions, this is our chance to ask and before we take action. Good evening.
Hi, Emery Foley, 45 South Street. A while ago, or a few weeks ago, you guys mentioned that you were going to form this committee. I think it's great that you're having a member at large, and so when you mentioned that a while ago, I was interested and heard that it was coming up. So I'm excited that the federal government passed this law back in March. I'm also glad to hear the sum of money that we have to play with here in town, and I think it'll be great to work with the other parties involved to try to come up with the best use of those funds.
Okay. Does any board members have any questions?
No, just thanks for volunteering.
Yeah, thanks so much for interest.
Colleen, any questions? No? Okay. Well, thanks for coming out. I appreciate you waiting. I know we got an hour and 10
I'd be
minutes.
watching at home anyway.
We appreciate you coming out. If there isn't any further discussions or questions, I can entertain a motion.
No, just it is nice to see you in person. Well,
Yes.
see you as an attendee. So. Hi.
Hi.
I move the board vote to appoint Anne Marie Foley to the American Rescue Plan Act Committee.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. Thanks, Emery. We'll
Thanks
wait
so much.
for a letter, and I'm sure we'll kick off a meeting shortly.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have Select Board member to serve on Open Space and Recreation Committee. Do we have any takers? I just volunteered, so
I would do it.
does anyone else? Okay. No object?
All right.
Not that there's an objection. I'm
No,
just
there-
saying
yeah.
if someone else wanted to do it, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to appoint Doreen DeFazio as the Select Board representative for the Open Space and Recreation Committee.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those by roll call. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. All right. Next up, we have representation to Central Mass Regional Planning Committee, CMRPC. We have any takers?
Aren't you on that now, Matt?
I am. I'm happy to stay on that, so I don't think we need a motion for this. I do think we need an alternate, though, which is typically I think it's the town administrator.
Yes.
But I don't think the town administrator can be the alternate on CMRPC, correct? If they don't live in town.
All right.
That-
We could appoint
That's
Ray.
correct. That's the issue, yeah.
Let's appoint Ray. He's not here. We said we would do that to him.
All right.
Yes.
Then I move the board vote to appoint Ray Mead as the alternate Select Board representative on CMRPC.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Not it for telling Ray. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, I. Declare the motion carried. Congratulations, Ray, being an alternate to CMRPC. All right, next up, representation on the Disability Commission. I know that, Matt, you had indicated that you came off the board, and based on the way that Mass General Law is set up and this committee set up, it's either an elected official or an official of the town. So I believe, Evan, you have someone that you want to appoint as an official of the town for us tonight?
Yes, I'd like to request that you appoint Robert Berger to that position.
I move the board vote to appoint Robert Berger as the Select Board representative on the Disability Commission.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, I. Declare the motion carried. All right. Next up, we have
All right, and
town... Yeah?
I just want to point out it's William's job to tell Mr. Berger that he's now on that committee.
You can-
Gladly.
You can tell Ray too that he's the alternate on CMRPC.
Also, gladly. Anything I can do to help, Bob.
All right. I'm sure we'll think of more things, William.
I know. That was a very poor choice of words right there.
All right. So next up, we have appointments for town administrator. Evan, you're recommending a conservation assistant?
Yep. So this position was vacated in March, and so we've done the interview process, and we've selected Miss Jan Elise Taylor, goes by Jan Taylor, to the position. She has a degree in conservation and is a great addition to the team.
I move the board vote to affirm the town administrator's appointment of Jan Taylor as the conservation assistant effective August 11th, 2021.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for the affirmation of Jan Taylor. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. Thank you.
Welcome to Jan.
Welcome, Jan. Yes. She started, what,
The
a week
11th.
ago?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so next
Yep.
up here.
Yeah, she's doing great.
Excellent. Like to hear that. So next up here, we have application review for Section 11 Priority Development Site Overlay District, also known as a PDSOD development at 244 Worcester Street. Tonight, Chris Mcgoldrick, the town planner, has joined us, and he's going to lead this discussion, and Evan's going to provide some supporting information as needed. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having me tonight. As you all know, we received our first 43D priority development site application. This is the first one that we've processed in town. This is for a warehouse distribution facility in the front portion of the Wyman Gordon, formerly known as the soccer fields. I won't steal the thunder on the presentation of that project. I believe the representatives will be meeting before the regular boards, Zoning Board of Appeals, Conservation Commission, and Planning Board. But as part of this 43D process, it changes the timelines of review for those boards. The Select Board essentially shepherds that along to make sure that the permitting is done within the 180-day time period. Currently, what we're in right now is it's called a application completeness phase, which is a 20-day time period to which the various boards have reviewed the application materials submitted. And they're really just looking to see, is that complete for their process or are additional materials needed? So I believe the board has received some memos back from the boards that outline what materials they do need. So I would recommend that the Select Board issue a formal letter incorporating those memorandums of materials required. And that will prompt them to supply those, and we can then move towards the review period with those boards. I did in my memorandum to the board, I included a couple procedural comments just to help understand recommendations for the process moving forward. So the first is that letter being sent, the first one is that once we receive all the materials, typically boards retain peer review councils. We typically use in the planning board Graves Engineering and MDM Transportation Consultants to review those technical details. They provide engineering experience that's above normal staff levels and review of those. So once we have the complete application, we should be requesting that that gets forwarded to the peer review consultants. In terms of the process, we also, the way it's laid out is the boards and commissions, the chairs, should appoint representatives to what's called a technical review team. So that's typically staff members, which would help to review, we've sort of informally already done that with reviewing the materials that were submitted, but I think a formal process would be helpful in terms of establishing that technical review team and also helping the Select Board in shepherding the process as we go through. Obviously all the boards will be on their own separate timelines of meetings, and keeping that all consolidated on a staff level will assist. The board may wish to look at, in terms of in addition to the peer review consultants, retaining a consultant specialized in the 43D process. Obviously, this is the first time that we've seen this application in town, and I think in order to make sure that we don't hit any pitfalls or unforeseen kind of nuances within the regulations, it may be useful to have some additional representation that would be under the peer review fees, so it would be technically paid by the applicant but representing the town in terms of the process. And then the other thing to note is that the 180-day project review deadline begins from the date the Select Board sends notice of the application of completeness. I'll defer to the board of how they want to strategize that, but my recommendation would be to allow the maximum amount of flexibility in terms of timeline is to hold off on submitting that notice until the full 20 days have passed. So that's kind of a brief procedural thing. I'm happy to answer any questions in terms of process moving forward.
All right. Any questions from the board for Mr. Mcgoldrick?
Yeah, just a few questions, I guess. So exactly what are the I mean, what is this basic process for? So if we just take a step back, you've mentioned 43, D quite a few times. What is the basic purpose of this? And obviously it's unique, so
Yes.
why is it coming up right now?
Yeah, so thank you. So part of what the Priority Site Development Overlay District does is it's meant to do, it's also called Expedited Permitting. So it's meant to make sure that applicants are able to get through the process of the various local boards in a more organized manner rather than going to each of the boards separately. The 43D process, what that does is the select board kind of oversees the full process. They still go to each of the boards for their public hearings, but the timelines are adjusted under that 180 days rather than the, they may be afforded additional time under the regular process. I think, so the zoning was adjusted for this 43D. It's an overlay zoning. Separate from the underlying zoning, but it still follows the regular site plan, special permit approval, conservation, order of conditions, and zoning board of appeals for any variances that they needed. So it's meant to give applicants some sort of assurance that they can get through the process. They'll have a yes or a no, more quickly than if they just went through the process normally.
Got it. Okay.
Doreen?
I just need clarification on one thing too. So you said the application completeness is 180 days, and that doesn't start until a formal letter from the board goes out. That's the start date.
Yes. There's essentially two phases. So there's the 20-day application completeness review.
Okay.
So from when the application was received in the town administrator's office. The board has 20 days to notify the applicant if there are materials missing. If there were, if the board fails to act within that 20 days, it's assumed to be a complete application, and it gets distributed to the boards, which we've already done in this case. But it would get distributed to the boards for their process to begin, and it starts that 180-day clock. If the board, issued a letter tonight and to the applicant and said that the materials are complete, the 180-day clock would start then. So it's tied to when that notice goes to the applicant.
So when was it received?
I believe
August
it was
August 6th, yeah.
August 6th, 2021. Yep.
Okay. And I believe we got some input from conservation, which said that they were still waiting on a few things.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So even if we wanted to, we couldn't issue a sort of finding of completeness tonight.
Right. I think my recommendation for the board tonight as an action item would be to issue a letter incorporating the memorandums received from the departments in terms of materials that are missing, and request those from the applicant.
Do we have to list those items that are missing in this motion?
I don't believe it. If it's incorporated as what was submitted to the board, I think that should be sufficient.
So not in the motion, but in the formal letter.
Right. I would
Okay.
reference the memorandum
Yep.
in the formal letter.
Okay.
Got it. Okay.
All right, Colleen, did you have any questions?
Since this is an expedited process, should we be meeting before September 7th to issue that letter of completeness once all of the information does get in?
So I would defer to the board on how they want to, they could let the 20 days pass, and then the process would assume that the application is complete. If the board would like to start the 180-day clock before then, which really has no benefit to the town, but they are able to issue that letter sooner. But I'll defer to the board on how they want to strategize that.
So 20 days, Colleen, from August 6th brings us to August 26th, Thursday, which which is next, it's almost a week and a couple days from today.
Sorry, just to clarify, technically it is business days, and so it would be September 3rd would be the next action needed.
Okay.
So, Chris, just to clarify though, if the board takes no action before September 3rd, it automatically advances as though they had written the letter of completeness, correct?
Correct.
So we have to take an action tonight. We can't defer to another meeting. I thought we had 20
Well-
days to.
Correct. So the action by issuing a letter, if you take action tonight, issuing a letter incorporating the materials that are needed as specified by the memos provided by the boards, that will start a new 20-day clock upon when they submit the new materials and they respond to that letter. That starts a new 20-day clock. If the board takes no action tonight and doesn't meet and takes no action before September 3rd, then the process assumes that the application is complete.
I got you. I understand what you're saying. Okay.
So we want to take action tonight. It sounds like.
Correct.
Yep.
I'm hearing upon
Correct.
recommendation from the town planner to take action tonight. Correct. And that starts just to. You have to hit me over the head with a 2x4 with this one, but it starts a new 20 days.
So the 20 days will start when they respond. So it
When they respond.
essentially
When they
stops
respond.
the clock, and when they provide the updated materials, that will start the new 20-day clock. So.
We're getting it, Chris.
I know.
So that you get into this type of stuff. This is new to SelectBoard.
I should have put together a timeline.
No.
Maybe not so new for Matt. He was on that side.
I'm a graphics guy, so that's I should have put something together.
So one thing I would ask that, depending upon what action that the board takes tonight, if it does take action, that we get notified as soon as possible so we can take whatever action that we need to as a board, right? So there will have to be some communication sent to us ASAP from, all the way from meeting and agenda planning and so on and so forth in preparation of that meeting. So that's the only request I have as chair, just so our board can be as prepared as possible. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Chris?
Chris, do you want to write the letter?
If yes, I'd be happy to. So.
All right.
Or we can have William do
Get
it.
him
If he likes the list.
Ready for it.
We're trying to determine if we want William
And-
to
and
write
you
the
need-
letter, Matt. Hold on one second. No, go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Matt.
just want to make sure I get my motion right.
Go ahead, Matt.
I move the board vote to authorize the town planner to write a letter to the applicant on the board's behalf incorporating memorandums from the various boards and committees indicating missing items from the 244 Worcester Street petitions and applications.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often I.
Miss Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. 4-0. Okay. Is there a next course of action that you need us to take?
I believe I would note some of the procedural things that were in the memo in terms of the technical committee or technical review team. I think so. We are. I'm hoping to meet with. I think we're fine for now. There's. We can come back to some of that other stuff if needed.
I mean, should we?
We'll be doing some further review of the.
Should we authorize a 43D peer review consultant for 244 Main Street tonight?
If the board so chooses, I think that would be.
I think to the complexity of this, I think that's prudent. How does the rest of the board feel?
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation, and you mentioned that the applicant ultimately would end up reimbursing the town for that.
Yeah, so I believe it could be handled under peer review, similar to how we retain Graves Engineering. They're working on behalf of both, but they provide that bridge between really just getting us through the process for the first time, so that we there's always nuance in terms of these kinds of regulations and specific site conditions that some expertise and specialty in this may be helpful.
All right.
Any questions for Chris on regards to retaining peer review consultant for 43D for 244 Worcester Street? All right, I can entertain a motion if anyone's ready.
I move the board vote to authorize the town administrator and or town planner to retain a 43D peer review consultant for the 244 Worcester Street project.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Do we want to include that it's being paid for by the applicant in the motion or no?
Is that necessary, Chris?
Okay.
I don't believe that's necessary. I think since it was specified the peer review, we would seek to go that route, and we'll work with the applicant to make sure that it would come at no cost to the town. If that's not amenable, then we'll kind of reconvene and see how we can work that out. But
Colin, I mean, you asked for that. Can you maybe explain why we would want to request that? I mean, before we take action.
Well, usually when we make a motion to, get a consultant, we put a cap on what the cost would be, not to exceed a certain dollar amount.
Sure.
And since we're not including anything like that, that was my thought.
Well, that's a good point. To Colleen's point, I would agree. I feel that, something as open-ended as this, is there any way that we can put a cap that would come back before us if we feel that it's going over a certain amount?
Chris?
Yeah.
So generally speaking, when you do peer review, any of the peer review consultants are going to be, their contract will be paid for and in agreement with the builder, or in this case, the 43D applicant. So I don't know that we want to particularly put a cap on it because we don't know what that process is going to entail. But I would say that the board could authorize us to enter into an agreement with a 43D consultant, provided that there is no financial impact to the town of Grafton.
I like that.
Okay. Would, Mr. Austin, would you amend your original motion to include that language?
So amended.
And,
I second that motion.
all right, any further discussion on the motion on the floor with the added language of no financial impact to the town? All right, hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried 4-0. Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
All right.
Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for walking us through that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Nice work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing how this process works out.
Sounds like we're
Me
going to
too.
see you again on this one.
I'm sure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. So next up, here we have policy review. The first one up here is comprehensive financial management plan. Policy. The second one we have is investment policy. Third is OPEB investment policy. Fourth, procurement policy. Fifth, recreation policies. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to bring up? Colleen.
I do. So on the comprehensive one under the capital planning, I felt like a lot of that was really, really prescriptive, and I didn't know if we wanted to keep it that detailed or dial it back a little. One of the things was there's 10 factors that they want every project to be weighted against. I didn't know if we wanted to align it more with what the DLS is doing, or if this is how we wanted it.
So this particular part of the policy was written by DLS, the Technical Assistance Bureau. That is part of what their charge is. We could certainly streamline some of that out. I like the robustness of it, so that when we get down to brass tacks at the end, when we're trying to figure out what should be funded ahead of something else, we can go ahead and weight it against these factors. I'd be happy to pare them down if you think they're a little bit over the top. But otherwise, I think I like them, but it's also my policy, so it's hard to be like, oh no, yeah, you're right, that's garbage.
No, it's not that it's garbage, but some of them seemed like it was just saying it the same thing twice. But if that's, if I'm on an island, I'm on an island.
I don't know.
Well, we're the government. We just keep saying the same thing over and over again till it works.
Colleen, was there anything in specifically that you want to bring to the board's attention that you would like to review on that policy?
So, like the DLS has public safety and health, legal infrastructure, efficiency, impact on service, and/or personnel. So that's what, 6 or 7 versus the
7,
10.
yeah.
I feel like we teased it out and made each of them individuals, where some of them could have been combined into one thing. But you're right, when you're coming down to these 2 projects, how are you going to pick it? I'm just thinking more with my CIPC cap on and how the process will work if we're teasing it out that far. But maybe this is more for Evan when Evan goes into his process, not necessarily for us.
I would agree with that statement. So this is what we're going to be using behind the scenes for the most part, and the parts that I like that are a little more teased out, especially is number 10, the administrative support, because so often we wind up doing these really cool new things, but haven't thought through what happens when someone actually has to do the work, or we need a computer to drive whatever that software was or whatever it is. So again, I'm open to any revision. But I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like the more granular approach to it. I think, I think the CIPC process and the town process is likely to get, we're going to have some adjustments anyways, because we've got our ClearGov software coming in and it's going to be built out. So I think that would be the time to I'd like to see some alignment between what's happening, within the TA's office and what's happening with CIPC. So, and I think that would be the time to kind of relook at this. If we want to dial it back and change the policy, I think we can do it at that point. But I do like the additional ways to look at how to prioritize the projects.
I would agree with that. And I'll also say that, we're reviewing this now and maybe we just sort of, approve it as is. And same thing like when CIPC starts the process this year, if there's anything that needs to be changed, we can always go back and amend it. And we can also add, if we wanted to, a section for CIPC and add it to the policy as well, if necessary.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I've been waiting for these policies for a long time. From my days on FinCom, and I'm really excited to see them go into play. I think that, we can amend these at any point. CIPC has, full authority to make recommendations to town policies and whatnot that impact capital planning. And I don't know, so just generally, I touch base with a couple of finance committee members. They've reviewed them pretty thoroughly and they're pretty happy with them. So
good.
Yeah, my thought was we just move forward with these as is, and we can amend them as we go along. There's obviously a lot to go through here. So that was my thought.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question about the procurement policy. So one thing, I'm going to make a general assumption that all of this goes with the guidelines of MCPPO for the state, and we're good with that. But there's a highlighted section about Chapter 90 being DCAM certified over 50,000. I'm just wondering why that's highlighted, if that also goes with the state procurement policy, and if that is a change from what we were doing before, and why it's highlighted, I guess.
So it's highlighted because we forgot to unhighlight it.
Oh, okay.
It's part of our internal process of reviewing the document.
Okay.
So this is a policy that I brought with me, that Will, being the certified all of it that he is, went through with a fine-tooth comb and really spent some time drilling down on ensuring that we are now matching exactly what procurement law tells us to do for those sections that need to be that specific. So I've reviewed it again. I think it's in pretty good shape. Like I said, that highlighting is just part of our process. Funny story though, William, I told William this was the policy that I wrote, and it's very robust, obviously. And then he was doing some research and found the town of Reddings, which is identical, which is where I stole it from, which was kind of a bummer because I was looking real sharp for a while there. But
I would just like to point out
that it's a pretty well vetted policy.
If I may, I'd like
What's
to point
that,
out that Reading stole it from Nantucket. I found the original of that too.
All right. Well, thank you, Nantucket.
Like Evan said, with the government, we just keep repeating things until
Right.
it's right.
So you can say there once was a draft policy from Nantucket, and people can finish that however they wish. I know. Let's keep it clean. It's select board. All right. All right. Is there any further
Great.
discussion? Oh,
No, that's it.
I'm sorry. Colleen or Matt, did
Just
you
one.
have any further questions?
One last for me. Just, Evan, I like the OPEB policy a lot. It doesn't really outline our strategy, sort of, for funding OPEB, and I'm just wondering, where's that going to go? And I'm not going to put you on the spot with how we do that, but that's something that we need to address.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And so one of the reasons why, so Mary and I worked pretty hard on the OPEB policy, and we left it intentionally pretty open.
Okay.
Because quite frankly, we don't have a prescribed strategy at this point.
I see.
Both of us being new, and also, both of us are new, and quite frankly, OPEB is a huge problem for municipalities throughout the Commonwealth. So,
Yep.
we have some policy suggestions that we've been kicking around, and we've discussed them briefly with FinCom. But we've really got to hone that in, and so for now, we left it a little bit loose so that we have some wiggle room.
Understood. Okay.
All right. Colleen, did you have any further questions?
No, just a comment that I really admire William's digging skills. I hope to be that good someday.
Years of practice in the American education system.
It's like learning how to write code all over again. They said someone else already developed it. You just got to find it and make it work for you. Yeah, exactly. All right. All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right. I can entertain a motion.
So I moved the board. It's the board okay with approving all these in one motion?
Well, Jen is here for recreation too. I just want to make sure
I
that
can- I can leave that one out.
Yeah, great.
Yeah?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
I move the board vote to approve the policies as written, referring to the following policies: the comprehensive financial management policy, the investment policy, the OPEB investment policy, and the procurement policy.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, I declare the motion carried. 4-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Next up,
Thank you.
Jen. Hi, welcome back.
Hi.
So bringing back here recreation policies. For the board to review. Is there anything the board has questions on after reading it? Colleen, do you have any questions or comments on the recreation policies? No? Doreen, Matt?
No, I wanted to give Jen the opportunity since she was here, if anything had changed in the policies from our last discussion, or if you just wanted to add anything. So I figured we'd vote on it separately.
No, I didn't know if it would help you guys to see, the original versus what was edited. The Recreation Commission did approve both of these, obviously, before I present them to you. It's really just for the naming policy, giving recreation an opportunity to have a say. People have come to us directly, and we might be a little more in depth than the town policy. We just felt we have more layers, underneath us than maybe with the town, between specific, facilities with playgrounds and fields and whatever under the actual parcel, the overall, location of the field. And then when it comes to what's the other one? I can't even believe it.
The use
Long
of,
summer,
use
and
of
it's just a
town-
vote over.
Yeah.
use of recreational fields and facilities.
Yeah, so that one, like I said before, a lot of it had to do with a lot of it was verbal and understood, and I really wanted to put it in writing and make it clear, and so it was enforceable. So nothing's blatantly different. It's just making it a little more black and white.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board further? I'm not seeing anything. All right, Jen, what's that? Go ahead.
No,
Good.
I said
Oh,
no.
all right. Thank you, Jen, for again coming in. At this point, I can take a motion.
So I move the board approve the following policies as presented: the naming of recreational parks, facilities, and locations, and the use of the town of Grafton recreational fields and facilities.
Second.
I have a motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? I must comment, I really like the idea of recreation weighing in on names of fields, by the way, if I haven't said that enough. But I think that's a great, and codifying all of your, things as is, I think that's gonna be helpful to anybody who plans to use those fields in the future. Hopefully that's a good guide for them and you don't have to recreate the wheel over and again on conversations.
Absolutely.
No, I think it includes a lot that's been happening, like I said, but it's just making it a little more official.
Right.
Totally.
You did a lot of work on that and we appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks,
very much, Jen. If there isn't any further discussion, I can take a vote. Mr. Fazio?
DeFazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, aye. Declare the motion carried 4-0. Thank you very much, Jen.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jen.
Select board reports. Does anybody have any reports for the select board they want to share?
Yeah, I have
Go ahead.
one update. So the fire chief search committee met a week ago on Wednesday evening, and Badge Quest was present, and the committee was able to look at the resumes received and discuss in executive session and determine a number that we thought was feasible to start interviewing and breaking down. So we are on schedule for the board to have 3 finalists. That's the plan, anyway, to have 3 finalists. And what would you say, Evan? End of September, beginning of October timeline, I think, is what we're anticipating. So we seem to be on schedule, and we've got some really great applicants.
Nice. That's great.
I think as a follow-up to that, I think I would like to add, and I know, Colleen, you had mentioned want to add this to a future agenda item with me a few weeks back, but maybe the board should, during a workshop, maybe discuss like what are the next steps and the processes that we're going to be undertaking over the next few weeks after that submission. And if we have any questions or comments that we would probably want to have answered prior to us getting to that point, is that agreeable to the committee to add that to the September workshop?
To the fire chief.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So this
Yep.
is just the board's opportunity because we're going to be
Yeah.
doing the final interviews. So this is our opportunity, I think, instead of kind of waiting another whole set of meetings and all that sort of thing. You're telling us that you're looking towards the end of September timeframe. So I kind of want to.
I think that would be a great time for us to determine, the next steps once we have those finalists and what our intentions are, just in case the committee needs to know that beforehand. So are you saying the committee would come into the workshop, or Evan and I would be the representatives of that committee?
I think you and Evan could be the representative of that committee,
Okay.
but I think it's more important just for the board to have an open conversation amongst themselves in determining, what those next steps are. I mean, Colleen, was there anything else in addition that you may want to add to that? We could always add it to the agenda the next week or two, but.
Yeah, another reason I was thinking about this was we just went through this process when we hired our new TA. A lot of us were really, we understood what we wanted from a TA. We understood how to interview a TA. I don't know if we all have that same skill set when it comes to a fire chief and how to interview a fire chief and what questions to ask. And I think any education we can bring to that and prepare for that would be good.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I am pleased to report that I feel like between Badge Quest and the committee members we do have a real strong sense of what we're looking for. There was also a survey that was sent out to the current fire department to get their feedback. And, I don't have it with me at the meeting here, but I think Evan and I can prepare to, answer that question.
Evan?
We to piggyback on that, Dorian, we had spoken at the last search committee meeting. I'll put together before the board meets, when you get your 3 final applicants, provided that there are 3 or less, I will provide you with a memo that talks about our process and the results of the survey and really the driving factors of how we got to the 3 that we have, so that you have that data in front of you and you understand how we got there.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that update. Appreciate it, and I'm pretty excited. I know I speak for myself on this. I'm pretty excited to move forward with this and get to our part of the process as select board members. Something new for Grafton. So I'm really looking forward to that. Is there any other select board member reports?
Yeah, just a couple. So I just wanted to mention that Mr. Carlson and I went to the India Day celebration. It was fantastic. Nice. We anybody that could attend that next year, I would highly recommend it. It was just a great sort of recognition of their Independence Day, and I didn't realize it, but we've got over 350 Indian families in Grafton. Mm-hmm. They're a large and growing contingent. So it really was a great opportunity to kind of meet and greet some of that community. The other thing is I sat in on a ClearGov, just a walkthrough of their capital planning module, and it just blew me away. I was very excited with all other things that we saw with ClearGov, the capabilities that they have for integrating with the request process and prioritization, and you can do what-if scenarios with different type of financing options. You can put in the capital components and the operational components, and once you've sort of put all the information in, you can see essentially, backward-looking and forward-looking trends and projections. And so just from a tools and automation standpoint for capital planning, it was spot on. It didn't have anything that I said, it was just a 45-minute thing, but he walked through every single thing. It ticked all the tick boxes that I had. So, and we have access to that. So I'm really looking forward to
exciting.
Getting that, in place over the next year.
All right. Any other member reports?
Well, I have that module if anybody else wants to watch it too, because it is exciting.
Great.
I can send it out to you guys.
Yeah, you had me when you said you have data to look at. I'm like, okay, I'm sold.
Yeah. Data.
Data. Yeah. Okay.
I actually have one more update, because I think our last meeting we didn't do updates because we were running late. So we also had a library building committee meeting on a Monday. I think it was last week. Also, it's all blurring together. And the highlight of that meeting was discussion with Chrissy Proctor from the Disabilities Commission, and just hearing her concerns and the Commission's concerns about the carpeting, and discussions with Evan as well. And it's been determined by both the Disabilities Commission and the Library Committee that we're going to wait until everything's in place to see, because we think it'll be a lot more toned down at that time, and we want to be able to evaluate together. But there's definitely some collaboration there and understanding. And of course, we all agree that we want this to be as accessible to the public as possible. And that's our goal for both committees. And so we also received additional information from another Disabilities Commission member about some of the paint coloring too. So I'm sure that'll be addressed at our next meeting. But both committees are working together, and and it's another exciting time for Grafton, and we just have to get through these punch list items and this disabilities checklist just to make sure that we're all able to enjoy our brand new library.
I have a general question on the library, and it's,
I will try to answer it for you,
I'm
Mr.
sure you probably know what
Carlson.
this is. So we received correspondence earlier today from resident about just when are they going to have the front of the library like in a state of completion where they can take down the gates and it's somewhat cleaned up.
So it sounds like, and Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, because you may have more updated information, but it sounds like the opening on October 2nd, and I think that is going to correlate well with the common as well, that's the cleanup. But I guess that would be a good question for Andy, because I don't know in terms of project timeline when the outside of the building is getting, the landscaping is going to be completed. But I would assume in the next few weeks.
Yeah, so there was a little slip in the timeline for the landscaping, which is why you see the kind of messy in the front. No two ways about it. The thing to keep in mind is that while that project is under construction, we don't own that site. Anything inside that fence is the contractor, and so we're working to piggyback on when they're actually going to remove that fence for when we can do the final completion up front. Ahead of the opening. So we'll have a better timeline beginning of next week. But it's a little chicken and the eggish over how that has to play out.
I mean, on the boards, I mean, for my benefit, could you send me an update on that plan and when that date's to occur? So community members ask, because it's, they're asking now.
Yes.
Granted, there's one I'm sure.
Yeah, it looks awful.
Yeah, but just give them something that says this is when it's anticipated. But as we all know, best laid plans, right? It doesn't always work out. Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make sure that we have that and we copy the board on that timeline.
Appreciate it. Is there any other select board member reports? All right. Moving to TA reports.
So I was going to talk about ClearGov and the library. But we're done with that now. So does anybody have any questions for me under this section or something they want me to highlight? Otherwise, that checked both my boxes.
Okay. Anybody? All right. Moving on. You're off the hook, Evan.
I'm just going to start emailing Matt and Doreen what I want to talk about so that I don't have to do it.
That's all you got to do.
Well, every committee I'm on, I see you, so.
Yeah, that is
so
true,
isn't it?
That is true.
All right. Does the board have any correspondence that they would like to go over tonight?
I do.
Yes.
Oh, Colleen had her hand up.
I'm sorry,
Let her go
Colleen.
first.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to acknowledge that we did receive more correspondence from Miss Penny Adams about George Hill Road, and we are looking into that. The Polish House and their World War II memorial about wanting to move that. And there was somebody reaching out about writing an article about 9/11, and I was just curious if anybody responded back to that person.
I have not responded back to the person seeking to write an article on 9/11 yet.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Okay. So given our new policy, that's going to be the chair, right? So then we don't all have to respond, or should we all respond, or?
Was Evan copied on that email? I can't remember.
I'm looking.
Yeah, I can certainly respond to that request for information.
Okay. And then what do we need to do? Is that an agenda item for the World War II memorial to have a further discussion on that, or how's that going to play out?
So I know we're looking to set up, or we formalized the Soldiers Memorial, Evan. I'm wondering if that's a committee that should be leveraged for this type of option and a gift to the town. I'm not sure, and then eventually come to us at some point for whatever approval that it's needed by the select board. I think it's very gracious of the Polish National Home, Mr. Kuris, reaching out to us, and wanting to preserve a piece of Grafton history. And I know that it's in the news that they're looking to sell the property, but that's like a part that they want to preserve. So, what do you all recommend that we do? I mean, does it make sense to go out to that committee and get their input and feedback, or do you want to just have it come right to us? What's the wish?
I mean, it's a beautiful memorial, and I like that they have been pretty thoughtful about what to do with it. I'd like to just support moving it to Mill Villages Park. I think it's sort of right down the street. It's kind of in the neighborhood, and it makes sense to me as a place for it to go. We definitely want to be preserving it, so I'm happy to just move forward with supporting their request.
All right, why don't we put that on the next agenda? We'll invite Mr. Karras in here from the Polish National Home, and we'll take official action. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
That's great.
Does that work? Okay.
That was my correspondence I wanted to bring up too. And, you know, it's the Polish Hall has also been really an important piece of South Grafton for, you know, many years. And so if they wanted to, and the Soldiers Memorial Committee wanted to hold some sort of service or something, or do something, you know, I also would support those efforts and want, you know, the select board, any of us who could attend. I think it's a big deal, probably hard for them to let go of this home, and I want to make sure that memorial is moved and recognized by us, and I think Mill Villages Park makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we have them in here on be September 7th? Okay, and I'll put that on the agenda.
Great.
And I'll invite Mr. Karras to the meeting, and we'll discuss that, and we'll make a final determination. Other than that, does anyone else have any other questions, comments on correspondence? Okay. Moving on. So we've already discussed and taken action on A, community host agreement. Next up, under that we have B, under GSX building permits. Evan, I'm going to tee you up on that one too.
Okay. So we briefly touched on this before. I was approached by GSX with Chris Mcgoldrick, looking to see if we could do a special fee for them, a fee reduction for their 8 Pine Street project. And so what they were looking to do is mitigate some of the costs that they incur as the town of Grafton requires a third-party reviewer. And so where we ended up, and I briefly touched upon this before, is that as this is a 40R project located on Pine Street, we would enter into an agreement with GSX to reduce the standard building permit fee from $10 per thousand to $5 per thousand. However, there would be a minimum fee of $250,000. And then further, once the project is completed, the developer would have to submit to an audit of true building costs, and anything over that $250,000 minimum at the $5 per thousand rate would be owed to the town at that point. So if you remember, that was the part that Ray had brought up in our previous meeting about wanting the town to be able to recoup that delta between the minimum fee and what the actual project cost is at the end of the day. I have been in talk with GSX throughout this process, and they are amenable to what I had just stated.
All right.
Good.
Any questions or comments to the board for Evan? All right. So Evan, are you looking for us to take action tonight, or is this something that you want us to take action on at a future meeting?
If you were amenable to taking action tonight, I do have a sample motion that you could use.
I've got it.
With the board's permission, does it want to take this up tonight and take action on this fee tonight? Is there any objections?
I'm happy to take action. Yeah.
Me too.
Colleen, yes or no? I'm sorry.
Yep, let's go for it.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I move the board vote to reduce the building permit fee for the 40R project located at 8 Pine Street with GSX ODG LLC, contingent upon town council approval to form with conditions as follows. The fee shall be reduced from $10 per thousand to $5 per thousand with a minimum fee of $250,000. Further, upon completion of the project, the developer will submit to an audit of true as-built costs. The town of Grafton will then be entitled to $5 per thousand of the overall as-built construction costs, which are above the minimum of $250,000.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion on the motion? So I have one question. Who performs the audit and who certifies the figures?
That would be done by the building department.
Okay.
The building department and the third-party reviewer.
And just to clarify that the $5 per 1,000 minimum fee of $250,000 is based on the projected costs that they submitted with their RFP, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Does anyone else? Nope. Okay. Hearing no further discussion on the motion at hand, I'll take a vote. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, aye. Declare the motion carried 4-0. Right. Thank you, Evan, for putting that together. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next one that's up, this was added later last week than I'd wanted, and getting information in front of the board and community is that we were notified from the Environmental Protection Agency that there was a pre-filing settlement negotiation between the EPA and the Grafton Upton Railroad. This is due to an investigation that the EPA has conducted, and they're in this penalty action against the Grafton Upton Railroad as we speak. So the reason why this is on the meeting tonight was that the attorney from the EPA reached out to the town of Grafton last week and had asked for community impact statements, or community statements in general. I shouldn't say impact, just community statements in general about the Grafton Upton Railroad and how it has affected Grafton as a community. After discussing just the mechanics of gathering information, the APA suggested taking both written correspondence from community members at large and having an official record and holding perhaps a public hearing so that way people who don't have an opportunity to write to us can come in to this board, and it would just be the only purpose of it would be like a non-regularly scheduled meeting, and openly discuss on the record what impact Grafton Upton Railroad has had on them and or the community that they want to disclose. The EPA would then take this information, which is due no later than September 10th. That is the deadline that they had given us, and they would put that into their records as part of their process from the EPA. So I find this intriguing on a number of different reasons. One, this is a federal enforcement agency that's asking input from the residents in the community of Grafton. So in discussions with Joanne and Evan last week, I would like to know how the board would like to move forward with the following sets of actions. One, we advertise that we're going to hold a meeting on or before September 9th at 7 p.m. It would be a public hearing. It would be put into the local paper and press that we'll be having it. And that we would also accept written testimony and written exhibits accepted on or before, obviously, the 9th, because it's going to take some time to collate and put that all together in a package for the EPA. So we're thinking that we would accept written correspondence to the to the town administrator's office by no later than Tuesday the 7th. And then on the 9th, we would have that public hearing component. Now, given the circumstances of COVID, I was talking with Evan just on the logistics of this, and one of the things I think that we as a select board, if we're going to hold a public hearing, we can anticipate that there could be a large amount of people who may want to attend that hearing. So if we gauge that there's going to be more than, I would say, 10 or 15 people that would come, I would probably look at hosting this in another venue that is more open, that allows people to more socially distance, but also to participate in the public hearing. There would be some logistics that would have to go through, but again, before we even kick that ball and get that rolling, I would like to know, how the board would like to proceed in these matters, if it wants to go and have this public hearing, or if it just wants to accept written testimony, and we submit to the EPA on or before the 10th of September. So, I don't know, Evan, did I leave anything out?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the board? Colleen?
Yeah, I like everything you just said. I think we should do a public hearing. I like the idea of changing the venue to allow for more participants in a socially distanced way. As far as community statements, I would also like if we could go back over the last 24 months and any correspondence that we've received be included in that as well. I think sometimes people maybe miss the memo as much as we try to get the word out there, and these are community statements that we know we have received, and I would like to include that to the EPA.
All right. Doreen?
I'm in agreement with Colleen. The other thing is, I don't know if there's a way to alert people who live around the railroad in particular to this meeting. I think that would be important so no one misses it. I don't know if there's a way to do that or we can do it, but I'd like to have as much public input as possible. I agree with a venue, I'm thinking the high school auditorium or something like that. But I also want to make sure that people have access to Zoom if they want to or have to be remote. So that's a logistic that I'd maybe like, Evan and William to work on if there's a possibility of having both. So a larger venue, but also access via Zoom. And just between the letter writing and the feature of Zoom and coming in person, I think we'll gather all the information we need to give to EPA. My one question is holding something as September 8th or September 9th, is that going to give the town of Grafton staff enough time to turn that over and present it to EPA, or do we need to do it sooner?
We talked about that at length. The 9th was picked because it gives the maximum amount of time and notice to the public to make plans to attend. In addition, that accepting the written testimony, at least the majority of it, a couple days prior to giving people a deadline. But again, if people come to a public hearing and they want to submit written testimony at that night, that's part of the public record. We kind of have to take that, I believe. But we're trying to mitigate the amount of administrative work that would go into that by setting a deadline like on or before the 7th to accept that, and then by doing the public hearing on the 9th, it doesn't take, well, I shouldn't say this, Bob DeToma or Bill's probably shaking his head at me. It doesn't take that long of a time to turn the video around and submit that to the EPA.
Great.
I said that as an interrogatory, Bill. Hopefully you're giving me a thumbs up.
Yeah, I think I see a thumbs up.
I don't know if I saw a thumbs up or a finger across the throat to me. All right,
very good.
But I think from a logistics standpoint, I talked to Evan and due to the importance of this and this opportunity that the EPA is offering to the town of Grafton, we understand that there could be some significant amount of staff time that would have to go into facilitating and organizing this. Again, it's the APA is not going to be there to answer questions. No one's there to really discuss the merits. It's just what has the railroad had as an impact to the town, and people are free to come and talk, about that railroad and what it's done for them any way they want. We probably should set some parameters and some reasonable times to be, sent. That way, you don't have someone here for an hour and a half, doing that. So I think, based on what I'm hearing, what's a time limit, I guess we should typically have? I mean, should we allow people 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes per person. And just also make it, oh, Evan just gave a look, like, that was a lot? Is that too much?
I was thinking you were going to say 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
2 minutes is a more
Okay.
common, yeah.
Okay.
2 minutes is a lot of, that's a lot of time.
You know, I
5
like to
minutes.
start up here,
5 minutes.
gotta
We're
work
still
down.
in the meeting in the tent.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay, so 2 minutes, and also communicate to the public that EPA will not be there. So we will not be answering questions. This is a public hearing.
Right. And I think working with
Yeah,
the,
well-
go ahead, Evan.
We'll put that in the release, the information that we push out, the specifics of the event, what it's for, and the parameters.
Okay.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Is there any questions, or does anyone on the board think of anything else that we should be considering?
Do you think it will be possible to go back and find correspondence that we've received over the last couple of years?
I'm gonna ask that to Evan. That's a data mining thing that we would have to be able to pull up. Is that something that you can find out for us and send us an email about
Yeah.
what level of effort that was, and is that effective in getting? As I agree, I think that people have written to us. I mean, we just had a resident the other week. This is their opportunity to make comments, but I think Colleen brings up a great point. If we've got a lot of that data already, are those things that can be submitted and found?
Yep, I'll have to look into that. I don't know how we're collating the data. So, I mean, if we're collating correspondence by topic, then I think it's probably pretty easy. If we're just putting correspondence in a book, which I think is more traditionally what happens, it might be a little bit more of a lengthy process. So let me look into that tomorrow, and I can let you folks know.
Okay.
And what about news articles too over the past few years? Would that be something that we would be able to collect? And
So I think the EPA, and I can talk to Ginny about this briefly. I think that they're already aware of news articles and other cases that were either similar or of the same vein. So I can I'll double check that fact. But I think the EPA was on top of that portion of it.
okay.
All right. Any other suggestions or comments? So I think be on the lookout for emails from Evan and his staff on just logistics and timing, releases of information. As much as we can get that out and notify the public in the most reasonable and expeditious manner possible. Joanne, I think at this point can go ahead and put the advertisement into the local papers. I think she needs it before Thursday. So she'll need something written up that outlines what the public hearing's purpose is. And again, speaking on that, it's just like, it's not a question and answer session at all. It is just people being able to verbally give a statement. Okay, and then working on at least one primary venue, here being Conference Room A. A secondary venue we'll work on that we think we can facilitate because, we will be taking people probably via Zoom and in person. Okay. And if we gauge that we're going to have a significant amount of people in person, we'll default to that alternate location, and we'll work out some logistics on making that safe as possible for everybody. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay. All right, we'll get working on it. Thank you. Next up, we have 3 sets of meeting minutes for August 3rd, August 7th, and August 10th. I will take a consent motion for all 3.
I move the board vote to accept the meeting minutes of August 3rd, August 7th, and August 10th, 2021, as presented.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion on the 3 sets of minutes? Seeing none, all those by roll call, please. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Mr. Roy?
Roy, aye.
Carlson, aye. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. So that concludes our meeting tonight. I do have the request of the board go into executive session. So therefore, I move the select board will now consider going into executive session in accordance with the open meeting law, Master General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, pursuant to approving prior meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. When I call out your name, please let me know your vote. Mr. Fazio?
Fazio, aye.
Mr. Often?
Often aye.
Ms. Roy?
Roy, I.
Carlson, aye. The board will be reconvening in open session only for the purposes of adjournment, and because of the nature of the meeting, I have to call one more thing. That's all I have to do. We'll be reconvening in open session for the purpose of adjournment. That's all I have to do. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.